Here's my mom.
Wow.
She's the best thing ever, man. I've said this before. I'll say it again. When Tupac was talking about dear mama, he was talking about her, man. She's the best thing that ever happened to my life. I love her dearly. Loving you back.
Well, he had Hot Wheels, and my daughter had the green machine. I don't know if you know what those are, but they riding toys. And they would haul butt down to the end of the driveway, and they knew not to ride out in the street. They weren't allowed in the street. They knew not to be that driveway and go into the street. So when they got to the end of the driveway, they would hit a hard left or a hard right, and they could ride down another block. It was all connected by sidewalks. And so I think they invented drift. And I was a strict mom. I didn't play, and I didn't tolerate disrespect. And that was about it. And we grew together from that. They went to Head Start, went to elementary school there. And then we moved here to Alliance, and they finished school, elementary school and middle school and high school here in Alliance. And they were just like normal kids. They played, they ran, they fell down. We went to the emergency room. They were just children. Nothing special, nothing different.
Well, like I said, my mom was always the presence. Like she was always like I never went through life without knowing that like my mom was coming. You know, if I was at my grandma's house, at either one of my grandmother's house, it was always like my mom. Like my mom was always a presence. I don't think she could have done anything other than what she did. She did the best that she could do with what she had, and I always felt like that's my mom. Like I can't explain anything other than my mom was always there. And I can't emphasize that more. I've never not had my mom around. I've never, like my dad, he was in and out. Grandma, some of them were in and out. But when my grandma was alive, she was always there because my mom always took us. And that's talking about my mom's mom. And my when my dad went away, I don't even remember. That was all I remember when my dad went away is we used to go on picnics, and we used to go see my dad at a picnic.
Dude, can't do that anymore.
Yeah, so I didn't even know that my dad was quote unquote prison or gone. I just knew that he wasn't around, but my mom was always a presence, always a presence. Whatever problem I had, I'd go to mom. Whatever good happened, I'd go to mom. Whatever bad happened, I'd go to mom. But like whatever, my mom was everything. I can't stress that more than I am. And I know I keep repeating the same thing. It's because that's all I know is my mom. In my entire life, my mom has always been present.
Oh no, I don't think black or white. We were we lived in a black area, but in George Park homes it was black and white. And we never wasn't a racist thing. Never had a problem with race there. And but I am from the South. I'm from Alabama, and I grew up with racism, and I knew racism. And where we lived at in Alabama, it was a rural city, but blacks lived in town, and the whites lived on the outer skirts of town. And we never mingled. I was born in 1951, and I came to Ohio in the 60s. And I'll tell you something strange. When I came to Ohio, that was the first time I ever went to school with white children. I was in fourth grade, and I walked into my fourth grade class, and seeing white kids, and I had never went to school with white children before. I went to a segregated school. So that was a culture shock. And then we moved to Akron. I was in Akron then. We moved to another side. My stepfather bought a house, and we lived on Fifth Avenue in Akron. And that's where I met. I went to elementary school, junior high school. Now they call it middle school. And I went to high school there in East Akron. And that's where I met Ramon's father. And we got married young. I had just turned 17 when we got married. Ramon was born when I was 18. And his dad went to prison. I think Ramon might have been 6 weeks old. So I grew up, raised myself pretty much the same. I had brothers and I took care of my brothers, so I knew how to be a mother. And it was just me and Ramon and his sister Darnette. And we all grew together. My mother-in-law and my sister-in-laws, we were all about the same age. My sister-in-laws and I had a good relationship with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law. I got a great relationship with my mother and my stepdad. And I had a family. I had a loving family, a huge loving family.
Oh,
I don't even remember that incident talking to you. I don't remember how that chopped off.
I remember, so I'll refresh your memory.
Okay.
I remember it vividly. So the whole thing started. And I'll be honest about this. Like, it started when I graduated from high school. My mom kind of wanted me to go to college, and I didn't want to go to school no more. And I had all of these colleges that were looking for me for wrestling, but I was just like, dude, I don't want to go to school no more. Like, I was done, and all my uncles were in the service, so I had decided to go to the service. And they said that I could wrestle for them in the service, and they was giving me a bunch of money to go wrestle for them. So I enlisted to go to the service, and I was supposed to leave in October. And then I told my mom that I was leaving for the service tomorrow, and she just seemed to me, she seemed unconcerned. That's what it just seemed like, because my friends had threw a party for me in Salem, and this is what Holly, Debbie, and Joe Rigetti and all of those, they all threw a party for me in Salem. And that night when I came home, I felt like she didn't care that I was leaving. So I didn't go. I thought she was gonna miss me. And my recruiter, he came, he was hot. He was really hot. He was like, "You gotta go, man. You gotta go. You've already, went through all of this. You told me you was going and blah blah blah." Now, fast forward to I get a new ship date. My new ship date is January the 4th, 1989.
Yeah. I didn't know he felt like that, but really it was his decision to make, and I was okay with it. He was making life decisions, and I was okay with it. I didn't know he felt like I didn't care, but that's just my nature. I'm like, okay. But I was proud of him. I wanted him to do something, do something positive. He didn't want to go to school, although when we were at the state championship in Columbus, Ohio, I had a 2-inch thick stack of business cards from coaches and recruiters who sought me out, but he didn't want to go to college. And I'm like, okay, but you're going to have to do something. You ain't going to hang around here. So when he chose to go to the military, I was on board with that. I didn't too much care about that Marine recruiter because he was like too pushy.
Yeah.
But when he decided with the Army, it could have been the Army or the Air Force, I was happy for him, actually.
But that's just the way she is. She's always been like, hey, you're grown, make your own decisions. And that's the that's the one thing that I can tell my mom, that she taught me how to make a decision. Right? You got to choose your decision. This is your life. You're an adult. You got to make an adult decision. And she's been saying that to me since I've been an adult. It hasn't changed.
Yeah, gotta be a man. They started to go wrong once he graduated high school and started making his own decisions, and I took my foot off his neck. When he started making his own decisions and started making all the wrong decisions, you know, and there was no thought other than getting a lawyer, finding out what happened, and doing what we could to keep him out of prison.
So I don't know if she
I didn't hear it the night of. I think he called me from the hospital or something.
Well, I called her. No, I called her. Called you from the city jail from downtown.
Okay.
I called you because they asked me that. I called you and they said, "Hey, mom," and it was like 1 o'clock or one. Like, no, it was like probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It was really late, and I called and was like, "Hey," I said, I'm going down. I'm going. They taking me to county jail. I shot. No, I told her. I said I shot a guy, and I said, no, this is where I said, I remember. I said, Mama, I said, I'm in the county, I'm in the city jail downtown in Alliance, and they're taking me to the county jail because I shot a guy. And my mom was like, you shot somebody. Remember that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so she said, you shot somebody. She said, where'd you get a gun?
I remember that part.
So
because I didn't know which was worse. You had shot somebody or stole Big Al's gun. Big Al was my stepfather, and he's a character. And I didn't know what was worse, him shooting somebody or stealing Big Al's gun. But
yeah.
We didn't go to jail.
There's
nothing we could
do.
They
was taking me to jail. There was nothing that they could do. But I was just letting her know that I was going to jail, because I remember when I told her, I said I shot somebody, and that's when I told her what had happened. She was like, "You shot somebody?" She said, "Where'd you get a gun?" I said, I took it from Big Al. She was like, "Oh no, man, you stole Big Al's gun?" When I shot somebody, she was like, "Whoa." She was like, "Oh no."
I know that was going to be hell today.
And so,
wow. Well, Lord have mercy. And do you know he waited and he got his gun back?
He got it back? Oh yeah, because he was reported stolen.
Years later.
Years?
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't know that. I didn't even know he got it back.
He got his gun back.
He had it reported stolen. I remember that, and that was one of the things that Jeff Giacometti threw up in my face.
Stealing a gun?
Well, I will get to that.
Oh.
All right, so yeah, so they ended up. She was like, "Well, what are they doing?" I said, "They're taking me to the county jail." And so I ended up going to the county jail, and they put me in the medical ward, and I couldn't really talk to nobody because I was on medical isolation. And then the next time I called her was like maybe 2 or 3 days later, and I remember crying on the phone, and she was like, I remember her telling me that everything was going to be okay. There's really nothing that she could do for me other than try to get me out. I don't know what that part entailed.
I remember going to Jeff Giacometti's and trying to get you a lawyer and talking to him. And I don't even remember going to your arraignment and all that stuff. Man, you talking about stuff.
35, 40 years ago almost.
Yeah. I'm 75 years old. That was a long time ago for me, man.
Yeah. I remember it vividly, though. I remember.
Shoot, we talking about 40 years.
Yeah, it's about 40 years ago. Because I was 18, 19, 18.
Yeah.
19, yeah. And I'm 56 now, so 57. So it was almost 40 years ago. At least 35. But I just remember that she was like, "We were trying to get you out." Grandma, I guess Grandma, you said Grandma was on Big Al about not leaving me in prison or in jail.
Yeah.
And so
he in here took his gun. Lord have mercy. No, I did everything I could for him. I did everything I could for him to get him not to go to prison. And then when I saw it was evident, I did everything I could to support him. I did what I could from my end to support him because I knew he was going to prison. Wasn't nothing I wanted, but wasn't nothing I could do about it once it was all said and done. But no, I don't regret. I don't think I dropped the ball or could have done more because the situation, I did what I could when I could. It was out of my hands. If I could have changed anything, I would have hoped they found him innocent.
My mom asked me, she said, "Where did I go wrong?" And I was like, "No, no, no, no." I said, you didn't do anything wrong. I said, "You raised a good man." I said, "I'm a good man. I got good values, good morals. I'm respectful. I'm a good dude. I just made bad decisions." And she was like, "I just wish I could have." I remember saying like, because there was nothing she could have done, and I don't know if that question came from. I don't really know where that question. Like, was it guilt or like because he was just
That's where you was just so different from Darnett. And I raised y'all both the same, you know? And I don't know what I did to make you a gangster,
I don't know, man.
and you didn't start out like that.
Nope, I did not. So
But
yeah,
my theory is, you as a parent, you do all you can to instill in them, respect, consequences, and you hope that when they become an adult and they get to that fork in the road to go right or left, that they choose to go right and don't take the shortcut, cross the field, and jump the ditch. So I didn't know what his thought pattern was to even do that. I couldn't even tell you that when he changed out of prison. All the changes came through prison. That's what I'm going to say, prison. I'm thinking maybe when he became saved, because up until then he was saying he didn't believe in God. If there was a God, God wouldn't have let him go through all he was going through if it was really a God. And he said he didn't believe in God. So I asked him, well, when you're in a dire situation, what's the first thing you say? And he holler, "Oh God." I say, well, why you call on God if you don't believe? You know. And then a few years later, he called me and said, "Hey, man, guess what?" I said, "What?" He said, "I got saved." And I told him, "From who or by who? From what?" And then he went to quoting the Holy Spirit and the blood of Jesus. And I said, "Oh, my goodness." And that's when I noticed the change because I knew he was sincere about that. So that's about when I noticed the change. But I think prison life gave him a lot to think about.
prison changed my life. It really, and because I started going, like I went in and just kept going the same, like kept going to prison, and the more I did in prison, the more I changed. And um, I remember there was times when I was in prison. Every time I would call home, it was always a problem. Like it was always trouble, or like I did, like it was always something. I was always calling, and then it got to the point where I just didn't call home anymore, and we didn't really contact. And my mom has this saying that says, "No news is good news." So if we just, it was just like I was living my life in prison and they were living their life out here, but it was a whole thing. But then I got saved, and when I got saved, it was totally different because right before that happened, I can tell you this: right before that happened, I had called my mom, and I was MF for this and this F for that, and blah blah. I was cussing up the storm. And my mom was like, "Why are you cussing so much?" And I said, "Mom, I'm in a hostile environment, and it calls for a hostile language. I can't just say, hey, excuse me, sir, could you not do that anymore?" I had to be like aggressive and stuff. And she's like, "Well, I don't want you being aggressive with me." And that language was prevalent in my vocabulary. Then when I got saved, the one thing that I stopped doing was cussing. And then I remember my mom talking to me, and she was like, "I can tell you changed just from your conversation alone." And she was like, and then she told me, "I want to meet this new man." I remember that. And here I am.
There you go.
So my mom didn't come visit me a lot in prison. And there was a reason why. And at first I felt some kind of way about it. And I remember asking her, like, how come you don't come see me? And she was like, "Listen," she said, "when your dad went to prison and he went to Mansfield," she said, "when he got out and they were leaving, she turned around and she looked back at the prison and she said, I ain't never coming back to this MF again." And then fast forward maybe however many years, now here I am in the same prison that my dad was in. And my mom's coming to visit me. And so then I went to another prison, and then she came and visited me there, and then she stopped coming to visit. And I was like, "Why aren't you coming to visit?" And she told me the story about my dad, and then she told me that she just can't see me behind bars. It hurts her heart. That's were her actual words. It hurts my heart to see you in prison, and I just can't do it. And I didn't realize that's how she felt about it. And I wasn't even upset that she didn't come visit. But then, I didn't see her for like 8 years, and then she came down. I guess they had a family reunion in Oklahoma. Yep, they had a family reunion in Oklahoma, and she was like, "Well, if I'm going to go all the way out to Oklahoma, I might as well just come to Texas and see you." And so they came down to Texas and saw me, her, my dad, my sister, and my two little nephews. And it was somebody else somebody wanted Tim's kids or
Little Timmy.
Timmy, yeah. And they all came and visited me, and that was a great moment for me because I hadn't seen my mom in 8 years. And then, yeah, so yeah, that was a great moment for me. So she's like, I remember I was afraid to call my mom and tell her that I robbed the bank, right? And and she was like, "Boy, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you do. I'm gonna always be your mama, and I'm gonna always love you unconditionally, no matter what you do."
That's it. I might not agree with it. I ain't gonna stop loving it. No,
Yeah,
no. My love is unconditional. Some of it was against him, and some of them he got what he went after. It was all based on his decisions, and he could have made better decisions, but his decisions put him where he was at. But I will say he made the best of prison. You know, he didn't waste his time in prison. And when he came out, he had a plan. He hit the ground running, and he been moving ever since.
so when I got my out date, like we had a plan, and that was my plan, and that's what I was going to execute. But then they came to me and told me I thought I was supposed to get out in August or something. They came back and told me, "Hey, you're getting out in 5 days," and I was like, "What?" And this was like 2.5 months early. So I really was like, "Dude, I don't want to come home. I didn't want because I had a plan on what I wanted to do, but I couldn't execute it. I couldn't go where I wanted to start at because of the time frame. They let me out too early." And so I was like, "Dang, I don't want to come home." But to be honest, best thing for me when I came home is to come here. is because when I first got here, my mom told me, because I came home and I was trying to take off running. Like she said, I was trying to do this, do that, do this. And she told me to just chill for 2 weeks. She said, just take the first couple weeks and chill, get oriented. And that's the best thing that she could have ever told me up until that point, because I just was like, I need to do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. And because we did that 2 week, like, just chill before I like, because I was gonna try to go out and get a job. And she was like, no, you just wait, get yourself together for 2 weeks. And that's what we did. And that was the best advice. And I gave that same advice to one of my friends that got out after a long time. I said, dude, just take the first couple of weeks and get yourself acclimated to get free. And I tell that to everybody now, that, like, people that are coming out of prison. And I say, hey, use a couple weeks to get yourself acclimated.
As far as if prison was the best thing for him, I'm not going to say the best thing for him, but I truly believe that prison saved his life, because the path he was on, I don't think he would have lived long out here on the street. You know, I got an education, a formal education, but I also am streetwise. And I tried to advise him. He didn't want to listen to me. I didn't know what I was talking about.
Yep. She ain't know nothing about the streets. But now I know. Now I know. Yeah, yeah. Now, if I would have listened to her, a whole lot of things would have went different. But she gave me some great advice on like when I started selling drugs. I remember when I started selling drugs, she was like, I don't want you selling. She said, if I had wanted you selling drugs, I'd have had you sell it for me. She said, but since this is what you're gonna do, sit out here, let me tell you some rules.
So let me pull your coat.
Yep.
I might as well have been talking out the side of my neck. I was just too happy. I was happy to see him. Welcomed him home with open arms.
Coming home, man, just being free, like, well, or semblance of freedom. Let me say that, because I had a semi freedom at that point. I came out, I was on probation, but they were very supportive. And my mom, my dad, my kids, my all my family, all of my family was very extremely supportive of me when I got home. And that same family that she's talking about, that community, that village, that 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 she had around her. My dad went away. When I came home, I had that same village around me, and I was very. I felt good when I came home. It was very easy. I didn't have any problems. Like, it was a great transition, and I think that's key for somebody coming out, is to have a good support system.
You know, I got this saying, I'm just going to sit on my perch like a mama bird and watch. And he did great. You know, he did great. He was confident, and I was confident in him. And he proved himself. You know, he showed me. I don't throw blame. I'm just happy at the outcome. You know, and I know he still has more to do. You know, still got more plans. And we got his.
I don't, because when I got saved, one of the CEOs asked me. He said, "Hey, now that you got saved, do you regret not doing it sooner?" And that was a good question. I had to think about it. And I said, "You know what?" I said, "No, I don't have any regrets, because I'm one of those guys where I was hard headed, and I needed to go through all of that in order to appreciate where I'm at today. Because if I didn't went through all of that and have that history, there's no way I could sit here and say that, look, I've been through the work, and I came out, and I came out better for it." And so yeah, I don't regret it, and I think that I needed that in order. That's the only way that I was going to learn. But that's the difference between providence and will. God knows the destination. How we get there is on us.
And I call that grandma wisdom. And I just say think twice before you make a decision. Think twice. Don't jump the gun. Think about consequences. That's what I would say. Just think twice and stay positive.
Oh, my mom gave me the best piece of advice. She said, "Learn the art of mastering the."
The two basic guys. My uh, my grandmother, like I told you, I'm from the South, and my grandmother, she worked in a cafe where white people were the only patrons. Black people weren't allowed to eat there, but she was the head cook. And a white man came in, and my grandma used to bake pies and cakes and stuff on the side for the holidays. And this man had an order, and she was really, really nice to him. And then when he left out, she said, I can't stand this. I said, well, if you can't stand him, I was a little girl. I said, if you can't stand him, why was you so nice to him? And she said, baby, you got to put a friendly smile on your face, learn how to master the two-faced game, and feed them with a long spoon because you know they will bite. And peace and farewell, brother.
Well, y'all know what my thing is. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification button. Remember, God loves you. So do I. Peace. One love. Yep. So that was a good idea. Next, we gotta do my dad.
Oh, Lord.
That's gonna be a. Yeah. That next, I don't know. That one is interesting.
Very.